So just because we're direct to consumer doesn't mean that the expectations of the consumers change. The expectation of the consumer is, I want what I want and I want it now. And if we don't continue to work to meet those customers where they are and meet their expectations, then whoever does is going to win.
Snoop Dogg announced that he was going smokeless. And then he announced that he was going smokeless because now he has a solid stove. How was that preparation for you?
It was wild. Can we really get this done? And can we get this done before Black Friday? Like, can we really pull this off?
What is the timing that you think you should always evaluate if the platform is working for you?
I don't think you should be going any longer than 3 years. So I got to embark on that replatform, and that was probably one of my most exciting and risky and scariest and just big question marks around all of it. That could have gone horribly wrong. Like, just really could have gone wrong, and it shifted the trajectory of my career. It shifted who I am as an individual and as a professional.
Here is Paula Macadi, and this is the second episode of my show. Welcome to OFFBounds. You have probably heard about Snoop Dogg going smokeless not so long ago, and that was an incredible campaign run by Solo Brands advertising its Solo stove, which is a fire pit that is smokeless. In this episode, I interviewed Jenna Posner, who is the Chief Digital Officer of Solo Brands, a D2C company that is exploring a few transformative ways to do business. We were introduced by a common friend who referred to her as the best digital e-commerce professional in the United States. And ladies and gentlemen, she is indeed exceptional. I went all the way to Philadelphia to meet Jenna, and we had an incredible time. You'll see how much fun we're having together. Jenna was a professional athlete, and she has a fascinating career in tech, which we will talk about in the interview. But before that, I would like to ask you to subscribe to the show, which will mean a lot to me, and you won't miss any future episodes with other e-commerce leaders. I promise I will work hard to always bring you to the best content. And this episode was only possible thanks to Yottaa. Yottaa enables online brands to deliver superior digital experience, improve site performance up to 60%, and increase online conversion up to 20%. And they just released its annual e-commerce technology buyer's guide, so go get your copy at yottaa.com/buyers-guide and find out which technology you should be adding to your e-commerce site this year.
It's 260 degrees that you have now about our industry, from the tech side to the retail side to the brand side. Were you strategic about it, or it was just luck?
It's such a good question. I think it was definitely a combination. So one thing I really pride myself on is my ability to take risk. I think that being able to calculate risk and know when the right time is to lean into risk is definitely I would say a blessing and a curse in some ways. When it comes to my path or my journey from tech over to retail, it was all very opportunistic. I don't think that I definitely didn't have a plan. I didn't think to myself, okay, I've figured out this tech thing. I'm now going to go to retail and see how the other half lives. I didn't really have that journey in mind, but when it presented itself to me, there's that luck piece. I was able to evaluate the opportunity quickly and understand that this was a measured risk, certainly worth taking. You know, I think when you're on the tech side, we're all drinking our Kool-Aid. We're all very obsessed with the tech that we bring to market or the gap in the tech stack that we think that we solve for. And we think that, you know, the problem we're solving is the most important thing in the planet. And we sometimes lose sight of our buyers, right? I don't think there's a lot of retail empathy on the tech side. I don't think it's intentional. I just don't think retail technologists know. They haven't experienced it, and they might not always be asking the right questions in the sales process to really learn more about how tech is bought or how it's implemented or how cross-channel stakeholders are created and enabled.
But that's my other question that I have, because I see a lot of people that work in retail and they go to tech, and I think that's a very smart transition because you already know how retailers buy, and then you just go and you understand their process. But you did the opposite. Do you think that was good? Like you had a different perspective, like, oh, now I know how the tech works. I mean,
yeah, I do. And you know what I've found is, and I don't want to generalize, but what I've heard from a lot of my vendors is an appreciation for my understanding and how the technology works. And I think there's a lot of retailers out there that understand the use cases, but don't really understand how the technology solves for them. And so there's been a lot of, acknowledgement from the tech side that they appreciate that. And going from retail to tech doesn't give you that, right? Going from tech to retail really gives you that. And so I almost feel like it's my superpower that I can identify good tech. It doesn't take testing and learning all of the time. Some of the time it does, but I've got pretty good radar for, my BS detector is like pretty good when it comes to technology, knowing how contracts are written, knowing how contracts are negotiated. It's definitely given me some superpowers that have helped me move quickly in the industry, I think.
And but you join a retailer, and usually when you go from tech, everybody talks about tech and etc. When you go to retail, they don't really get much into tech. Did they listen to you? Did they absorb it, or they were resistant?
I was so lucky. I was hired by such an unbelievable leader and enabled to completely be autonomous. There was a lot of trust and an acknowledgement that the business at the time just didn't have a big tech vocabulary, and they knew that they needed it to be dangerous and to go after the Foot Lockers and Finish Lines of the world. And there was a lot of trust that I had that knowledge. And so I was really set free. As long as I colored in the lines, and by in the lines, I mean in budget, as long as I stayed on budget, I was set free to make my own decisions and manage my own P&L, and it really allowed me to move fast.
When I was doing my research before interviewing you, I saw one article that you wrote that was very beautiful. It's called Retail Experiment. And you were talking about replatforming. And that's a big decision, isn't it? I want to know how this decision works and how do you sell this decision to others?
Yeah, I'll talk about my Snipes experience, and then I'll talk about what I'm experiencing at Solo Brands now. One of the value propositions to actually coming over to Snipes from tech was actually going through a Salesforce replatform. So Snipes had already decided that Salesforce was going to be the platform of record. And so I didn't have to go through the decision-making process. What I did have is about 10 years of experience building partnership with Salesforce. And so I had a really good view of not only the tech side of the business, but relationship building within the four walls of Salesforce. And so I was on their partner advisory board for a number of years. I was strategic within Salesforce. So being able to come over to Snipes and go through a replatforming and experience Salesforce from the consumer side, from the buyer side, from the client side, was such a cool gift to round out that relationship that it was honestly a really big decision. It was a big factor in my decision in actually taking the role at Snipes. It's like, oh my God, I can actually see this full circle. This will be so cool.
That's the strategic part that we were talking about.
Yes. So, look, we were on Magento 1 when I was hired at Snipes. It was sunsetting. We had to replatform. There had to be a decision. Europe had already made the decision that they were going to go Salesforce. We had a global contract that we could ride. We did have the autonomy to make our own choice, but Salesforce is an unbelievable platform and is absolutely the right global choice. So I got to embark on that replatform, and that was probably one of my most exciting and risky and scariest and just big question marks around all of it. Like, how is this going to go? How am I going to do this? How am I going to find the right resources? What is the complementary tech that's going to go with it? I was just winging it and operating and figuring it out as I went. Now, coming into Solo Brands, when you talk about thinking about a replatform, I think what happens with most retailers when they implement a platform is there's a lot out of the box, right? And so you have a window of time where you can really kind of get to that baseline table stakes within the platform that you've selected. And I kind of call it like you've got a bunch of tricks, right? You've got a bunch of pre-integrated solutions. You've got a bunch of best practices that have been proven by the platform. And typically, if the platform is worth its weight, they're going to have resources to help guide you into driving value off of that platform. I think where we are with Solo and where a lot of retailers are right now is trying to figure out what is the practice for evaluating when you've hit the ceiling. When have you pushed the platform to when have you exhausted it, right? When are you out of tricks? And how do you see it coming so that by the time you're ready to start replatforming, if you hit a wall and you can't continue to innovate or build or maybe your velocity isn't able to be sustained or supported by the platform anymore. I mean, it's kind of too late at that point. You have to see it coming. So, the first thing I did when I came into Solo Brands about 5 months ago was just really do a deep dive tech evaluation to understand what are the third parties that are working, how is our infrastructure supporting the business, where is it falling down, where is it standing up, and easily and very quickly prioritizing what needs to change and what can remain. So I think there are a lot of retail executives that are content in their platform and maybe don't look at it as often as they should be. And I think that we need to challenge ourselves to...
What is the timing that you think you should always evaluate if the platform is working for you?
I don't think you should be going any longer than 3 years. So I would say 3 to 5 is probably that window.
And you might choose to keep the same platform,
Sure.
or you might choose to move on.
Of course. I mean, and technology is innovating every day. So even if you were built on, the SFRA backend of Salesforce 5 years ago, now they have a whole composable, headless solution that can, enable a level of agility and flexibility that didn't exist 3 to 5 years ago. So, it doesn't mean that you have to rip the whole thing out and replace it, but, your platform needs to evolve. And, we have to make sure that we're looking at our own practices and our own performance to make those decisions.
I would love to know from your perspective as a technologist. I am not such an expert on that, but what is the value of composability?
It's a good question. I think it's gotten a lot of buzz, probably a little bit more than it deserves. I think in theory, the concept of composable is really, really smart, especially if you're in a portfolio company with lots and lots of brands. I think where it breaks down is, when you have a brand portfolio that is so diverse like us, we're selling fire pits, on one site, we're selling, Chubby's men's swimwear on another, and leisure, apparel, accessories, we're selling kayaks, and we're selling paddleboards, and there isn't a lot of crossover from an infrastructure standpoint. So when you're looking at kind of using the front end as a cookie cutter that you can kind of rip and replace, you kind of lose those economies of scale very quickly because the use cases are so different. But if you're Gap, right, or Old Navy or Banana Republic, and you're just selling different kinds of clothes, right, there are scenarios where that front end infrastructure kind of being a cookie cutter that can enable a third-party integration with one implementation across many sites. I mean, that's really compelling. So I think it takes a certain kind of retailer to benefit from the value of composable.
This article, I'll go back to this article because it's very good. I'll put in the show descriptions so everybody reads it.
Cool.
But that was 2 years ago, and we were still living through a pandemic. Mm-hmm. And you started at Snipes just a little before the pandemic. How was that? Because Snipes had stores, had the digital, and it was a moment that everything digital accelerated. I would love to see your perspective on how that happened. And
I will say just a little explanation around the retail experiment title of the piece. When I took this role at Snipes, I really thought it was going to be temporary. I really thought I was just going to operate as this, retail tech spy that was going to come in and get to see how the sausage is made and tell all my friends hey guys, I learned all these things. This is how it actually works. Oh my God. Right. Because when you're on the retail tech side, retailers are so elusive. They're so hard to engage with, and they withhold a lot of information. Retailers aren't dying to tell you all of their deepest, darkest secrets or their numbers or their traffic volume or whatever it might be. So the whole retail experiment concept was, I thought this was going to be temporary. I didn't think this was going to be something long term. So yeah, it's very interesting. So when I came in, started this replatform, started building up the team. The way that Snipes came to the US in 2019 was by way of acquisition. So Snipes was founded in 1998 in Germany, live and thriving, top 3 sneaker and streetwear retailer in Europe, Finish Line, Foot Locker, Snipes. And they always wanted to come to the US. So by way of acquisition, they had acquired Kicks USA, which was a 64 location chain. I don't even remember all this stuff. There was a 64 location chain.
I have a lot of numbers in
mind. Based out of Philly. And once that acquisition took place, there were 4 subsequent acquisitions after that. So the growth in the US was really, really fast. So when I came on board, e-commerce practice was tiny, right? Sub 10 million, really, really small. And so
you had all these brands that you kept acquiring? Like you had to put everything in one place, right?
Yeah, that was the vision. So the thought was, and it's actually a very interesting nuance of the sneaker industry, is that you're kind of only as big and only as good as your allocation, right? So if you've got product that is hype product that brings the masses, right? Like see every Jordan 1 on the planet, Nike determines how much you get. And so that's typically, it's a combination of, what's the relationship like? How many stores do you have? Like what's your real influence or impact on the industry? And so the bet was that we could acquire businesses that had allocations, and we could essentially acquire those allocations. So you could buy these, small, regional retailers, buy their store footprint, buy their allocation, and grow this, 100% sell-through product that you could really expect and forecast in a really measurable way. So that was kind of the plan, a combination of organic growth, opening up stores organically, getting permission to, increase those allocations, but also acquire our store footprint. And through those acquisitions, we grew super, super quickly. So it was a wild ride. I'll say doing it through the pandemic. I feel like in the way that we all talk about, the e-commerce industry and technology kind of exploding, like getting 10 years of growth in a year or two, I kind of felt like my education and my connection with retail kind of, follow the same trajectory, that I have all these like badges of honor of like making it through, store closures and, even civil unrest. I mean, our stores were heavily impacted at Snipes, and it was a lot. We learned a lot. We came together as a culture and as a team, and we executed beautifully. We built a really great team, and the, business 10x'd, over the course of a 4-year period, or the digital business anyway. So, it was a wild ride.
But you had like all these customers coming in digital, probably learning about Snipes for the first time and staying and managing all the new data and...
Absolutely. It was a lot. It was great. Again, just really consolidated learning experience. It's awesome. And it was great, sad, but great to be able to leave the business and watch them continue to thrive, It feels really good to see the team still cranking.
So you had to go through a lot of team building there and a lot of challenges, and you as an athlete.
Yeah.
As someone that had, how many years as an athlete?
I don't know. How old am I?
Okay, so
you don't ever stop
all this lifetime as an athlete.
Yeah.
Do you think that shaped your leadership? How that translates to your leadership?
Absolutely. I mean, not just leadership, but resilience, dependence, and trust on your teammates. There's no way to do any of this alone. There's so many disciplines. There's so much knowledge. No one person can carry all of the information to drive these businesses forward. And so, building a team that's, rooted in trust and, this connective tissue that really makes us all feel like we're a part of something greater than ourselves is really beautiful. And going through the acquisition at Snipes and building that team out from roughly 10 people to 50 over the course of the 4 years, there wasn't just new hiring, but there was also understanding how to evolve and pivot a legacy culture through an acquisition into something that was new. And that was hard. It definitely wasn't easy, but it worked. And for me, and I don't know how other leaders, what their vibe is, but for me, it's authenticity. It's just, I'm as honest and open, as transparent as I can be. I expose my teammates and direct reports to as much as I possibly can, because I value the exposure to this information so much, right? Being able to learn how to study and work a P&L. I wish somebody would have shown me that before I took this role, because it took me some time to really get into it and really become an expert. And so I do think that creates a level of trust and confidence in teammates that you're there to help enable and support and evangelize for them, to help grow them. And that connection has made some really beautiful relationships that I still carry from my time at Snipes. So I'm now 4.5 months in it at Solo, trying to crack everything open and do it all again. And it's been really great, I would say, over the past couple of months to really feel that shift happening and to feel that I've got a shop.
You are in the team building process again.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
What are some of the characteristics you look for when you're building a team?
Resilience is a big one. Energy is a big one. You don't always need somebody with like super hyper pace, right? Not everybody can be wild. Some people need to really be pragmatic and, kind of North Star centered individual. I will say I have
balance it out.
Yeah, I actually have a direct report at Solo it's our third gig together. So he and I are incredible partners. We totally balance each other out. So, I don't think there's one answer. I think that, you need a really good, diverse crew of individuals. But if you can find that thread between each person that really connects us and keeps us committed to learning and growing, again, just the ability to feel like you're doing this as a team. Anybody that's like in a silo or on an island by themselves, like it's just not sustainable. Like you need your people, you need support, you need camaraderie, you need commiseration, like all those things, right? So
do you think you coach them? I use coach because of sports, but you coach them through becoming, through growing, becoming a leader themselves? And
sometimes I'll see a moment to call something out, but for me, it's more through doing, right? It's practicing what you preach. It's being in the weeds. It's rolling up your sleeves. It's being available on Black Friday. It's being available on the Saturday and Sunday after Black Friday, right? It's just being in the trenches with everyone and, just trying to create that connection between everyone.
So you are now in your brand experiment, if I can call it that.
I know. I was like, thank you for the title for my next.
I was looking forward for this next. Who knows if there's a replatforming coming to hear about on this brand experiment article.
Yeah.
But what I want to know is what drove you to accept this challenge? Was it Snoop Dogg?
It was not Snoop. That came later. But really it was a couple things. Snipes had become incredibly stable, and I love challenges. I love them. I love a good mess, right? I love making change, and I just found myself in an incredibly stable, respectful place within Snipes. And when I was approached with the opportunity, I looked at it and I thought, wow, I've been working for a brand of brands, right? We're essentially a wholesaler. We're selling Nike, Adidas, Puma, Jordan, etc. And this is a really cool opportunity to get on the product development side, on the manufacturing side, like go vertical, actually really see what is it like to build a brand. And when you're a D2C brand where the majority of your revenue is flowing through a direct consumer channel, there's no stores to compete with. There's no split of marketing budget, right? You're like, you kind of get to be the darling. And I thought, wow, what a great opportunity to come in and just like really be the lifeblood of the organization and get the priority and be able to get involved in everything. Even the wholesale distribution, right? What is that like from the other side?
How is that like?
It's very interesting. It's very interesting.
I'd love to understand because solo brands, first, you guys are 4 brands.
Oh, more than that now. Yeah,
how many?
So we are Solo Stove, which is the most widely distributed smokeless fire pit on the planet.
Okay.
Chubbies Shorts. Chubbies. Yep, I'm wearing it right now. Which is a men's swimwear company, athleisure, etc. Men's apparel brand. We have Oru, which is the origami of kayaks. It's a kayak that folds up. It's 20 pounds. You can throw in the back of your car. So like no strapping a giant kayak to the top of your car in order to get to the lake. Got Isle Paddleboards, which is an inflatable paddleboard company. Super cool vibe, like Southern California brand. We've got TerraFlame, think indoor fire. So this was kind of our foray inside. It's compressed concrete bowls that are powered by an ethanol gel fuel that actually shake it up. It gets air bubbles in it and it crackles. So it sounds like wood. It's really cool. No off-gassing. You can cook on it. S'mores indoors, the whole deal.
I wish you had this here.
I know I should have brought it. But I mean, my kids and I, we do s'mores like every night. It's really cool. And then recently, not so recently anymore, but we've acquired a company called Icy Breeze. And Icy Breeze is a portable air conditioning unit. Think bringing air conditioning to the fishing boat or the baseball game or your patio while you grill a burger on your Solo Stove. So
you have 5 brands.
Yeah. Am I missing any? I don't know. I might be.
You have enough brands to make it very very different than what it used to be.
Yes.
And how is the structure? Do you have stores, physical stores? Do you work with partners? Do you sell D2C? How is that structure?
So Chubby's has a few retail locations. We're kind of just dipping our toe in the water there. It's going really well. But we also obviously are direct to consumer, and we have this growing wholesale market, which is very interesting. So you can find Solo Stove these days in Costco, in Walmart, in Target, Scheels, Academy Sports, Dick's Sporting Goods. And so that's been really interesting. You know, it's a growing channel. It's relatively new to the business. So I think we're all kind of learning as we go through this for the first time, understanding, you know, what's the benefit, what's the risk, what's the cost of getting your product out there? What does it do for brand awareness? And then what does attribution look like? How do you manage a very aggressive marketing budget? Some of which supports sell-through, on attributable revenue channels like direct-to-consumer, and others that don't, that kind of find their way into Walmart and Dick's Sporting Goods and the rest. So it's a fun challenge. It's a kind of a new environment that we're embarking on, and it's been really, really, really fast.
It must be interesting to think about the journey of the customer, if they found about it online and they went to the store to see it, to touch, to try it out, or they saw it on the store, and then you must be very happy with all the data that you are getting and observing the behavior.
Yeah, it is really, really interesting, and I've got a vision for this for 24 that I think could be pretty cool. It's going to be hard, but I'll kind of walk you through it. It's kind of nerdy, so bear with me.
Okay.
So I come from this retail world, right? I come from 308 stores at Snipes, and I had the benefit of having all of these omnichannel hooks in place. So being able to expose inventory position, being able to enable a BOPUS transaction or a ship from store, ship to store, all of the iterations of those omnichannel use cases. And I saw the benefit and the increase of omnichannel consumers. I saw the benefit of enabling the digital environment to serve as a voice for those physical stores and the value and benefit that had to the business. But we can't really do that with wholesale, right? Because it's not us. It's not us, right? And we don't own the product anymore. So I want to blur the lines. My big picture for 24 is trying to figure out how can we work with some of our key wholesale distributors and convince them to allow us to represent their units on our direct-to-consumer environment. So just because we're direct-to-consumer doesn't mean that the expectations of the consumers change. The expectation of the consumer is, I want what I want and I want it now, right? Mm-hmm. I want it today. I want it tomorrow. I'm willing to pick it up. I want it same day. I'm willing to wait 3 days. And if we don't continue to work to meet those customers where they are and meet their expectations, then whoever does is going to win. So I want to find a way to expose Dick's Sporting Goods inventory on our website. I want Walmart's inventory feeds. I want to be able to show those consumers physically where those units are so that they can make the choice. And if that can eventually morph into a BOPUS transaction that we can reconcile in the back end, I think that'd be really cool.
Our fulfillment for online, do you think that could be
amazing?
Yeah.
I mean, especially by proximity. I mean, route an order to a Walmart for fulfillment because the consumer's a mile away from it. I mean, come on, like the story's there. Just got to put the pipes in place.
I'm excited. Well, we're going to have a second episode end of next year.
In 5 years when we actually get this done. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Well, okay, 5 years, we see the outcome.
Yeah, we'll see.
But you mentioned something about aggressive marketing budget, and I want to talk about what everybody's talking about now. We saw what happened when Snoop Dogg announced that he was going smokeless. That was, I have the note here, on November 16th. We are recording this episode on November 30th. So 2 weeks ago, he announced he was going smokeless. And then he announced that he was going smokeless because now he has a Solo Stove.
Yeah.
I checked TikTok yesterday. It had just Snoop Dogg TikTok. I don't know about the other social channels, but it had 50 million views, 7 million shares, and like everywhere around the world, everybody's talking about it.
Yeah.
I imagine that you had to orchestrate with the whole team at Solo Stove about this campaign, the outcomes. How was that preparation for you?
It was wild. it was slow, and then it was fast, and then it was slow, and then it was fast. You know,
and you're just 4 months in the business.
Correct.
Yeah.
So you know, it all materialized in a very short period of time. We worked with the Martin agency, really, really talented. You know, they work with Geico, you know, like best of the best. And they came to us with this pitch about Snoop going smokeless. And we all saw the deck and we were just like, oh my God, we have to do this.
Take all my money.
Yes, please. Please. I don't care what this costs. Let's get it done. No, the web is not the sentiment. But we looked at it and we thought, wow, can we really get this done? And can we get this done before Black Friday? Like, can we really pull this off? There were conversations about, do we push it into a New Year's resolution? Do we get it into Q1? Like, no, our CEO was just hell-bent on getting it done before Black Friday and allowing it to be kind of the catalyst to kick off, you know, what was to be a, you know, massive Black Friday, Cyber Monday. And yeah, it took all efforts for sure. There was a lot of negotiating back and forth, I'm sure, as you can imagine. But we came to terms on a really compelling, you know, relationship with him, and it worked. I mean, like that post on Thursday, sitting quiet for 4 days. I mean, first of all, we've been sitting on this concept and idea for, you know, over a month, you know, just trying to keep our mouths shut because, you know, nobody could know about this because it only works if no one knows. So, yeah, he posted on Thursday and we just all held our breath. We're like, is it going to happen? Is it going to happen? Is it going to happen?
But I imagine like you had to prepare huge amounts of inventory. Supply chain was there. Like the website had to be perfect.
Oh, for
Everything
sure.
had to work for this announcement.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, luckily we're in a pretty stable place, both infrastructurally, from an inventory position perspective. We're in a very healthy place. The business is incredibly healthy, very profitable. And so that was kind of like a lucky, you know, a lucky baseline for us to not really have to worry about those things too much. But we took all the precautions. I think what was really fun for us too, Jordan and myself, right, that came over from Snipes, was that, you know, we've been dealing with hype selling for a long time. We've been dealing with 1 million people coming for, you know, 1,000 pairs of shoes and having to deal with that kind of volume. So we knew everything that we had to do in order to ready the site. It was really funny. We actually got an email the day before the launch of the product from the Martin agencies to say, hey, you know, you might want to look at your rate limiting. And, you know, I'm not sure if you guys have done a hype sale like this before, and so I sent back a list of, you know, 12 precautions we've taken from the top of the funnel all the way to the bottom. And they were like, oh, okay, yeah, you guys have this. You're fine. So, yeah, it was great. We sat there quiet for 4 days, waiting for the news to come out and really unsure, you know, what we could expect out of Snoop. You know, how dedicated was he? How into the story was he? And he went above and beyond. I mean, he posted much more than he was, you know, contractually obligated to. Told a great story. He was great on set. I don't know if you saw the Snooper reel, which is like the blooper reel basically that got, oh, you gotta go look it up. It's so
I'll have to see it. I was yesterday on TikTok seeing the reactions.
Yeah.
So I saw a lot of young TikTokers, not like me, but they're like, yo, did you see how genius it is? It was amazing. I'm gonna buy a solar stove. And I was like, wow, that's exactly amazing.
Yeah, it was
and it reached like an audience that I wouldn't think of for a solar stove. I would think more on like
that's Snoop though. That's Snoop for you, right? Yeah. Like he's just ubiquitous. He goes across generations, across, you know, every cultural barrier. I mean, he has a very uncanny way of just connecting with anyone, any age, anything. And it was just the perfect choice, perfect fit. You know, we tossed around ideas like Willie Nelson or Seth Rogen. Like, could we maybe find some other, you know, notorious smokers, you know, to pull this off?
I think nobody can be a better smoker than Snoop.
Nobody could. So, yeah, we got a little bit of luck, a lot of grit. Our CEO worked really hard to get this deal done, and it was just really impressive. And then our marketing team executed alongside the Martin agency, and our reach was global. I mean, it was massive. You know, billions of people saw it.
I know. I had people in Brazil saying how genius that it was.
Yeah.
Are you going international with Solar Stove now that you have an international
Yeah, we are.
audience?
Yeah, we are international. We're global. We have digital practices in Australia, Canada, and Europe. And what I will say is next year, our international growth is one of our 3 pillars from a strategic perspective. So we'll be leaning in internationally for sure. This was a great way for us to get on the radar I would anticipate us doubling down in those markets where we currently
have to enjoy this momentum that everybody's talking about, right?
Absolutely.
And you're not only with the Snoop Dogg, you're also at the Macy's parade.
Yeah,
which is super nice.
Yeah, it was so fun. I was not there, but I have video of me. My wife was videoing me on the phone with a colleague watching it. My kids are there. We're all screaming and like fist pumping, being in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade. We obviously had a really well thought out ad buy to support all of this, Macy's and Snoop, obviously. And to see the ad hit right after our performance, I mean, it was beautiful. It's like perfectly executed. It was great.
So for next year, you're planning growing internationally.
Yeah. Blurring the lines between direct to consumer and wholesale.
You said 3 pillars. What's the third one?
Oh, the third one. Yeah. We've gone through a number of acquisitions, and through those acquisitions, we've acquired product, we've acquired brands, we've acquired talent, and we've acquired a lot of customer data. And one thing that we did really well at Snipes, because we had to do it 5 times, is understand the value of that acquired data and how to put it back to work. And so this concept of a renewed sense of data governance and understanding how can our acquired data impact our bottom line, well, top and bottom line, is something I really want to dig into and create a practice around. So yeah, those are the 3 pillars. It's focus on an international growth. It's focus on, this renewed education around the value of data governance. And the third being blurring the lines between direct consumer and wholesale.
Those are all ambitious plans, and I'm sure you need a lot of tech providers to help you on this journey, which we're already part of it. But I love that you could, inspired us on how do you pick these tech partners? How would you say to another person on your shoes, what is the best way to select the right ones?
Yeah. Well, I think that there's technology that you can look at the tech on its face value, right? So what are the use cases that I'm going to implement with this technology, and what can it mean to the business? Obviously, everyone's going to do, build business cases and understand the, ROI and payback, and let's assume that is a baseline that everybody goes through. So any tech you're going to purchase, there's an intended payback over a predetermined period of time. So let's just take that off the table. That's table stakes. That's a no-brainer. What I look for in tech providers is I don't want a point solution. So I don't want a tech company that does one thing well and only one thing well. Because if they're not going to continue to evolve, then you're going to hit that dreaded ceiling, right? So you've got to find tech providers that are continually evolving their technology and their impact and their place in the market. But you also have to find a tech provider that you can really connect with on an emotional level. I really believe from a partnership perspective that these relationships aren't just contracts, they're actual partnerships. And if they're not going to be partnerships, then they're going to fail. And so there are 3 core pillars to partnership that I believe in, which is rooted in reciprocity, vision, and trust. And I'll take trust first. Trust is really, this is homage to the sales process, right? Have I been oversold? Are you going to deliver what it is that we've contracted? Is this a fair price? Is it a fair price for me? And is it a fair price for you, right? I think that there are a lot of retail executives that think if they can negotiate the best rate, they're doing what's best for the business. But you have to have a contract value that's actually going to benefit the vendor. Otherwise, they're going to neglect you and they're going to leave you alone. So you've got to build this trust early. You have to have a forthright and honest sales process. They'll sign these contracts, tell their teams to implement this tech, and tell me when we've reached our payback, right? But they don't go deep. They don't learn about the tech. They don't stay involved in the implementation process. And as a result, they don't really have the knowledge that they need to be an evangelist on the back half of the relationship. And that's really where I believe retail executives need to lean in. We need to be advocates of our good tech. We need to be evangelists of our good data and our good results. And we need to be a part of helping to build and grow the brand and share our vision with them so that our highly educated and relevant visions can impact their product development. And I found that when you put in that time, I sit on every client advisory board I'm asked to sit on. So I don't know, it's like 10 at this point. And it gives me an opportunity to learn tremendously, not just from the retail vendors, but from the other retail executives that I sit on these boards with. So I learn very quickly some of the use cases they're putting in market. But it also gives me an opportunity to share my vision for how this tech could really impact my business. And if they like it enough, sometimes they'll build it. And then I get to move faster because I'm not just building things in-house, right? I'm actually utilizing third-party technologists, experts, to build this tech the right way. So,
with you being this advisor, doesn't it make you biased to buy this technology specifically?
No, if it doesn't work, it's time to look for something else, right? So,
you advise them to change.
Yeah,
not necessarily going to buy from them.
Still got to perform, right? And sometimes, there's an intent to partner. There's an intent, to listen to the vision and execute. And sometimes the vendors don't execute, right? They might have the intent to build something really compelling, and they just don't get it out. And I often have to take a look and say, am I willing to wait? Am I willing to wait more, or is there another vendor that has surpassed them from a tech perspective, and should I be looking at that instead? So,
very good. And now we're getting to the end of our conversation. I want to know more about you. What do you think was the biggest achievement of your career?
I think that transition. I think being able to have so much unknown going into retail and taking the risk and plunge and trusting myself to figure it out, and being able to ask the right questions when I don't know what's in front of me. That could have gone horribly wrong. Really could have gone wrong. And it shifted the trajectory of my career. It shifted who I am as an individual, and as a professional. And if that hadn't happened, if that hadn't worked out, I'd be in a much different place right now.
Well, that when you take risks, you take the risk of failing as well. Did you have any failure in your career that you learned something from?
Every day, every day. I think it's funny. I'm trying to think if something like really dramatic comes to mind. I will say with the failure piece, I don't dwell on it. I think that retroing is so important, and I've talked about this before. Actually, I think this is an athlete thing. When you play sports at the professional level, they tape every game, and teams, individuals and coaches spend a lot of time together looking at old tape, and you retro on what did I do well, what didn't I do well, what didn't I see in the moment, what could I have done better. And for me, failure is such an unbelievable opportunity to learn that what I'll typically do is, and we have some of this to do from the past week, but we'll look back and we'll say, okay, where did we win? Where did we lose? What could we have done better? And I think what's interesting, and I'm calling myself out right now on not having like a giant failure to tell you, is that then you move on. You take that moment to retro and learn, make your adjustments, and know that you're going to see the field differently next time. You don't have to dwell on the drop pass. You don't have to dwell on the,
punish yourself.
No,
one thing that you did.
I'm really trying to think of something that's worth. Yeah, I don't know. I'll think about it.
I moved on. I'm past that.
Next.
I'm stuck to my success.
No, stop it. Not what I mean at all.
I'm joking.
Yeah.
So as an athlete, you're still an athlete. You're still playing rugby, or what kind of sports do you play now?
That ship has totally sailed. Rugby is such an intense sport. My body just couldn't take any more beatings. After rugby, I played co-ed flag football, which was really fun because dudes throw footballs really hard. So that's really fun to catch a really fast football in the gut. It's also fun to make dudes look dumb, when you're kind of running around them on the field because they don't expect you to have a move. So that was really fun for me. But I got an injury doing that, and my wife was like, "That could have been your knee. You're a parent. You can't do this anymore." So I had to give that up. But now I know this is going to seem like so cliche and like apropos for like everyone's answer right now, but I play a ton of pickleball.
Wow, that's trendy. I should have someone on the podcast about pickleball.
So lame. It's so lame. I actually had a Chubby's pickleball sweatshirt that I put on this morning, and I was like, I can't wear this to this interview. but yeah, I play a lot of pickleball. It's such a fun sport, and it can still be super competitive, and I can just play for hours. It's awesome.
And do you incentivize your kids to pursue sports as well?
I don't incentivize them, but I support them in anything they're interested in. I mean, you've got one that is like, I love basketball and soccer. The other one is just wants to play squash all the time. And then one is just like, I want to go to sculpture class. You know, it's like,
follow your passion.
It is a lot of letting them lead. I try to expose them to new things and just champion them the moment they catch on to something. I've got one son who is in a boy choir. He's about to get his green jacket, which is so cool, which means he gets to travel with the choir internationally to go sing. So, yeah, we've got a really diverse crew of dudes.
That's wonderful to have, actually.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. Well, that's all for today. I think we could spend the afternoon talking here, but I'm in Philly and I'm going to have my Philly cheese steak. That's how it's called.
Yes, it's the right
I'll have the vegan version.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, you know.
I know a good spot.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's go now then. And then in 5 years, we see if everything that you wanted to accomplish was accomplished. And maybe you have a drink here as well.
Sounds great.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed the interview or learned from another inspiring commerce leader. Next week, we will be in New York for NRF's big show, and I'm excited to see what retail innovation is looking like for 2024. If you have any suggestions, please reach out to me directly on LinkedIn or send me an email to ideas@offbounds.tv. I'll be back next Tuesday with another guest, this time from the home improvement segment, bringing his interesting perspective on digital transformation. I'll talk with Tim Engler. He's the SVP of Technology for OB. To learn more about how Yottaa can optimize every page load on your e-commerce site and increase conversions, please visit Yottaa.com.